Lama Yeshe, the peaceful stillness of the silent mind, Buddhism, mind, and meditation. Editor's Preface. This publication is the fourth in our series of free books by Lama Yeshe and one of 18 free books published by the archive. Altogether, we have published nearly 700,000 free books, something we can all rejoice in. And offer sincere and grateful thanks to all those who have made this possible. The 6 teachings contained herein come from Lama Yeshe's 1975 visit to Australia. The first 3 are a series of consecutive evening lectures Lama gave at Melbourne University. By the 3rd night, he thought people had heard enough talk and instead offered a guided meditation. We have indicated the breaks clearly and suggest that instead of reading it straight through, you pause for a few minutes after each paragraph to think about what Lama just said as he intended. The last 3 teachings are public lectures given in Sydney. Again, they are filled with love, insight, wisdom, and compassion, and the question-answer sessions Lama loved so much are as dynamic and informative as ever. We hope you will enjoy reading these talks as much as we delight in bringing them to you. Once more, I thank Wendy Cook and Linda Getter for their kind and helpful editorial suggestions. Chapter 1. Buddhism. Something for everybody. Some people think they know all about Buddhism and Buddhists just because they have read a couple of books. They pick one up. Let's see what this book says. Well, according to this, it seems that Buddhists are really extreme. They believe in all sorts of strange stuff. They pick up another. My goodness, Buddhists are extremely nihilistic. They draw all sorts of wrong conclusions based on extremely limited information. They don't see anything like the whole picture. This is very dangerous. Perhaps they read something from the Madhyamaka school of Buddhist philosophy, which is known for its rigorous intellectual approach to the subject of emptiness, the ultimate nature of reality, and can be very difficult to understand. This can lead them to think, oh, Buddhists aren't religious, they are atheists. They don't believe anything. They think that nothing exists. How can they consider themselves religious? This too can be very dangerous. Other people might conclude, wow, Buddhists believe in 3 gods. They say Buddha is one god, Dharma is another, Sangha a third. They must be super believers. That's too much. In the West, we've never heard of such a thing as 3 gods, only one. We are religious, but we only have one God. We can't even agree with the Buddhists on how many gods there are. If you look at just one tiny aspect of Buddhism, of course it might appear too much for you. But Buddhism is not just about 1 or 2 small things. It is not some tiny philosophy. Lord Buddha explained the nature of every single phenomenon in the universe. At this stage, I have had about 9 or 10 years' experience teaching Buddhist philosophy to Westerners and experimenting with how it fits their minds, mainly in the 1-month meditation courses we hold each year at Kopan Monastery in Nepal. In these courses, we try to explain everything, but I have found that if we talk too much about the negative side of things, students completely freak out. Not all of them, but many do. They say, these lamas emphasize the negative too much. Why don't they talk more about the positive? Buddhism isn't only about delusion and suffering. Why do they teach us this negative stuff day after day? But the thing about Buddhism is that before you can put yourself into the positive path to liberation, enlightenment, or God, whatever you want to call it, the name doesn't matter. You have to know how your negative mind works. If you don't understand how the 2 extreme negative views of overestimation and underestimation function within you, how can you correct your actions and put yourself into the right path? Therefore, it is crucial to know the negative aspects of your nature. Actually, if you comprehend the evolution of your negative mind from beginning to end, you will feel very comfortable. Conversely, if you don't know how it works, you will finish up thinking that negative actions are positive. Moreover, if you try to practice the path to liberation without a solid grounding in what is positive and what is negative, a simple question from someone challenging what you are doing can completely derail you. You might get confused and give up. That's the sign of a weak mind. You have to see the totality of the evolution of both the negative and the positive mind. Some people assume that Buddhism is probably a nice religion that always talks diplomatically and sweetly about holy things. When we start teaching Buddhism to beginners, we don't begin by talking about holy things. The first thing we explain is the basic nature of your present mind. What's going on down here, right now, not Buddha up there. However, at this point, I would like to say one thing about the nature of Buddha. As I mentioned before, some people with a limited knowledge of Buddhism think that while Christianity and other religions say that God is only one, Buddhists worship three gods. Actually, if you understand the true nature of Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, you will know that there's no separation between them. Buddha is Buddha. Buddha is Dharma. Buddha is Sangha. Accepting Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha as the ultimate refuge does not contradict the unity of God. There are those who think that Buddhism is simply an intellectual philosophy and includes no religious practice. That's not true either. Buddhism contains both intellectual philosophy and religious practice. When Lord Buddha was teaching, he taught his students as individuals, giving each whatever they needed. When offering solutions to the negative mind, he would reveal different methods because each person's negative mind is different. Sometimes he would explain, yes, this exists, but at others he would say, no, this doesn't exist, drawing upon the Buddhist school of thought appropriate for each person's level of mind. Seeing this, people whose minds are limited might think that Lord Buddha was confused, that his explanations were contradictory, but Lord Buddha was not confused. He was a wise teacher who could see that different minds experienced different problems and therefore different solutions were required. For example, a skillful doctor might advise a patient with a fever to fast for a couple of days, but then tell the patient to eat. The small minded person might observe, this doctor is silly. One day he says, don't eat, the next day he says, eat. He's really confused. But actually, the doctor is wise. He understands the evolution of the patient's disease, so he prescribes different treatments at different times. Lord Buddha, the supreme physician, treated his disciples the same way. He taught sentient beings according to their level of mind. You can't all of a sudden start talking about the intellectual intricacies of the enlightened view to people whose minds are completely confused. They have a long way to go. They have to be taught what their limited minds can digest. If even Lord Buddha were to teach you things your mind could not digest, you would freak out. Instead of gaining benefit, you would go berserk. You have to know this. Even before Buddhism came to Tibet, there were already many different Buddhist schools, doctrines, and philosophies in existence. There still are. But basically, they are in no way contradictory. They are all there for the gradual development of the human mind. Actually, all those various doctrines and philosophies exist for the gradual development of the individual person's mind. In the lowest school of Buddhist philosophy, Lord Buddha teaches the phenomena are self existent. In the next, he teaches that they are not completely self existent, that something comes from the side of the object and something from the side of the mind. Finally, he explains that in reality, nothing at all comes from the side of the object, it exists only in name. You will find that some religions don't have these different levels of view, don't have a variety of approaches for the gradual development of the human mind. In Buddhism, when your mind is at the initial level, you are given certain practices to do. When, through those practices, your mind has developed a little, you are taught the methods of the next level. When you have accomplished those, you go on to more advanced techniques. In this way, by degrees, your understanding and perception change, and you progress along the path. Thus, Buddhism is extremely precise. Whoever you are, you can find specific philosophical explanations and methods of practice to suit your individual level of mind. In the West, we pick up a book. Oh, this sounds good. I like this book. I think I will practice this meditation. But even though the words sound nice and you like the ideas, if you're not ready for a certain practice, there's no way you can integrate it with your mind. And if you try, you might end up thinking, oh, this method doesn't work. But the problem is not with the method, it's with your trying to implement something for which you are not ready. You don't know how to integrate that idea with your mind or put it into your experience. That's the problem. You can find nice ideas in every book in the world, but how do these nice ideas relate to your mind? How do you put them into everyday experience? If you can, it makes sense for you to practice them. Your mind will become soft and gentle, calm and peaceful, and your life will be happier. You will begin to taste the honey of Dharma. Otherwise, no honey, just Coca-Cola. Too much Coke, too much gas, no sleep, and all running to the bathroom. I'm joking. I'm not talking about the physical here. These are just examples for the mind. Whatever you find in Buddhist philosophy and practice is there solely for the psychological treatment of the human mind. Lord Buddha never propounded any abstruse philosophy just so that he could proudly proclaim, "This is my doctrine." He never propounded a single philosophical point that wasn't related to the human mind or meant to be integrated with it. Never. Buddhism is a way of living your life that is related to your own mind, your own view, your own experience. Therefore, be careful when you evaluate Buddhism as this, or that. For example, after this lecture, you're going to go home and tell people Buddhism is this, Buddhism is that, because this Tibetan Lama said so. But please don't think that tonight I've told you all about Buddhism. I've barely scratched the surface. What I'm saying here is by no means the measure of Buddhism. Since the different schools of Buddhist philosophy and their views are graduated, different schools for different minds, how do you know that when you pick up a particular book, what it contains will fit your mind? Of course, in Lord Buddha's teaching, there are methods for each of us. If you are wise, you can certainly select a book that suits you. In Buddhism, there's something for everybody, something anybody can understand and actualize, and nothing that is too difficult for anybody that no human mind can understand. Lord Buddha gave precise teachings that can be understood by any individual according to their level of mind. Different methods, different views, different philosophies, different doctrines. For example, Lord Buddha gave a general explanation of how karma functions in everyday life that you don't need a sophisticated intellect to understand. In his very first teaching on the Four Noble Truths, he explained karma very simply. First, he explained true suffering. Isn't that sensible? If someone describes your own agitated mind, how it comes, how it goes, what sort of effects it has, how can you reject that? Oh, that's too much for me. Impossible. How can you reject somebody's telling you correctly and in detail how your mind is agitated, how it's in conflict every day of your life because it is split, not integrated? If someone gives you a perfect explanation of this, you can. How can you say it's too difficult to understand? We don't try to teach beginners the intricacies of Madhyamaka philosophy. We can tell immediately who's ready to listen to teachings on emptiness and who isn't. But we can teach them about the problems they face every day of their lives and the nature of true suffering in such a way that they can understand the evolution of their everyday reality. Actually, Lord Buddha taught about human suffering and the agitated mind in many different ways. To some people, he gave very simple explanations. To others, who were more intellectually advanced, he gave more subtle, technical explanations. Even the way he taught about the nature of suffering is fantastic. He had so many different approaches to introduce this subject to the human mind. Isn't it amazing? How can you deny your agitated mind? I don't believe I have an agitated mind. I don't want to hear about that. How can you deny it? Every day of your life you are trapped in your physical body and you have to put up with it. When somebody explains its nature to you, how can you reject it? Perhaps you're going to argue that you don't have an agitated mind. In that case, I'm going to say, check how you are when you get up in the morning. Be aware for just a day, then you will see. Or not even a day. Just try sitting still for an hour in a cross-legged position. Your ego will become completely freaked out. Oh, my knees hurt. Pain in the knees is so transient. Your agitated mind keeps going and going and going, all day and all night, for months, for years. It never stops. In Sanskrit, the word for Lord Buddha's teaching is Dharma. Dharma is medicine. Just as every physical illness has its own medicine, Lord Buddha has prescribed a specific method for each mental disease. That's what he taught. He didn't just hand out the same teaching to everybody, irrespective of who they were or what their problem was. Therefore, you can't simply say, Buddhism is this. Dharma is not just one thing. As I mentioned before, there are various schools of Buddhist thought. The two main ones are the Hinayana and the Mahayana. The Mahayana in turn is divided into Paramitayana and Vajrayana or Tantrayana. Tantrayana or Tantra also contains a variety of schools. Basically, there are four, each of which contains its own specific techniques, but I can't go into that here. Nevertheless, it's important for you to know that there exists such a well-organized, step-by-step path by which you can gradually develop your mind to enlightenment. Since Tibetan Buddhism is not yet perfectly established in this part of the world, I'm just mentioning this for your information. For example, these days we have advanced modes of transport, like fast cars and jet planes, but that doesn't mean there's no longer any place for the bicycle. In the evolution of human transport, we started off with simple carts. Then came cars, then planes, and now we have moon rockets and so forth. Soon there'll be something to top even the rockets of today. Don't think that they are the ultimate human invention. There's no limit to how far the human mind can develop. Like today, everybody has television. But a few decades ago, if you would describe the television set to somebody, they would not have believed such a thing possible. Or nowadays, in developed countries at least, many people have a car. Perhaps in time, all these people will have their own jet. You are going to tell me that that's not possible, but why not? These things are material phenomena, and if the human mind puts effort in that direction, such things can develop. It's nothing supernatural, it just hasn't happened yet. Anyway, what I'm saying is that just as here, with these material things, there are degrees of development, and the earlier versions don't conflict with the later ones, so too the philosophies, doctrines, views, and methods contained in Lord Buddha's profound teaching are all there for the gradual spiritual development of any one individual and do not conflict with or contradict each other. Of course, if you think that the material sense world that you perceive is all that exists, and that there's no possibility of accomplishing that which you can imagine, that it's all purely mental speculation, that's ridiculous. Even the inventor of the rocket had to picture it in his mind before he could create it. First, he dreamed it up. Then, he put it together, the material elements necessary to manufacture it. Then the rocket appeared. There's no way he could have made a rocket without first creating it in his mind. So, can you see? All these different modern inventions result from the power of the human mind. Therefore, don't think that dreams never become reality. It is possible. Perhaps that's enough for now. Basically, Mahayana Buddhism contains many methods and techniques, and every single one is necessary for the development of each human mind. I'm not going to go into the specifics here, but if you have any questions, I would be glad to try to answer them. Question: I would like to ask something about reincarnation. Some occultists believe that if you are born in a Western country, you are born there for the lessons that are to be learned in the West, and to take up an Eastern teaching is to regress, because you would already have been in the East many times before. Now, this might be a silly view, but some people hold it, and I wonder what you think. Lama: Well, that's a good question, I guess. So, what's your conclusion? That those born in the West are advanced human beings, and for them to learn Eastern philosophy is to descend into the animal realm? That's what it sounds like. But it's a good question. Some people might think like that, and I agree that there could be somebody who says, I'm fed up with the Western way of life. I can't stand it any longer. I'm going East. This person is too extreme, and his rejecting the West and adopting Eastern ideas in this way could be seen as a return to the animal realm. But another Westerner might think, I have everything, I'm well educated, I have a wife and family, a good job, a house, a car, and plenty of money, but I'm still not satisfied. When I was a kid, I thought if I had all this, I would be happy. But I'm not. Money is not everything. I need to support my mind. He knows the entire Western experience from beginning to end, but he's still not satisfied and wants to learn about the mind. So where can he go? He knows that Western psychologists cannot explain the nature of the mind and how it works in the present moment. But he needs satisfaction right now. He wants to be able to face the world and support his mind without fear. He checks around and comes to the conclusion that Eastern ways of thought can help him more than those of the West. Coming to Eastern philosophy in this way is progress, not a regression to the animal realm. For some people it's necessary. Therefore, taking up Eastern thought can be positive for some, while for others it can be negative. Question. Scientists say that there are intelligent beings throughout the universe. Is Earth the only place where people can gain enlightenment, or do you consider that there are intelligent beings on other planets who can gain enlightenment in their own physical plane? Lama. It is not only in this solar system that you can get enlightened. Both science and Lord Buddha have described billions and billions of solar systems. What Lord Buddha described 2,500 years ago and what the scientists of today have discovered have come together perfectly. Question. Have you ever been reincarnated? Have you had previous lives? Lama. Yes, of course. My mind, but not this body, has come from previous lives, and I will go on forever. This life will become a past life of my future ones. Nothing can stop the energy of consciousness or mind. Therefore, killing yourself is no solution to a difficult life. It's much better to simply relax and wait for death to come in its own time. Question. Does Buddhism teach an end to a particular mind, or does the transfer of minds go on forever? Lama. Some kinds of mind can end, but there's no end to the basic mind. The moment-to-moment mind, the waves upon the ocean, can stop, but the energy of the ocean of mind runs forever. Question. Does that mean the world and the universe will continue infinitely? Lama, I said it's the mind that continues. Question. And who is it that keeps this wheel moving? Lama. Who keeps the wheel of mind moving? Energy. For example, the energy of your mind of yesterday automatically moves your mind of today. It's just like your physical body in that even when your body dies, the energy of its elements continues to run, albeit in another form. Question. Has there always been the same number of sentient beings? Will there always be the same number? Lama, in this solar system, the numbers vary, sometimes more, sometimes less. In this solar system, sentient beings come and go. Question. Does that mean that we could incarnate into a different solar systems? Lama, yes, we incarnate into different worlds. Sometimes we have bodies of form, sometimes our bodies are formless. But now we have to finish. If you have more questions, please bring them tomorrow night, and we can debate together then. Prince Philip Theatre, Melbourne University, 4th of April, 1975.